This is Christine A. Smith, founder of the Pre-Act Your Age Journal and host of the Aging Better Network, a website of resources for actively retired individuals. My guest on this podcast will introduce their own product or service in just a few minutes. Hello, Blessing. Thank you so much, Barbara. You have carved out this moment for not just me, but everyone who will ever see this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
I am so grateful. I know your office is so busy. I even get little bits of information that are just exciting to me. That the blue book, that's really nice and bright, right there in front of the covered bridge painting. That book is needed and is sought after, and it is going out on trucks, I assume. Just regularly. And I'm so grateful that I received mine a little while back. And so, as you may know, on LinkedIn, I call myself the hashtag aging enthusiast. It's difficult to say and maybe a little harder to even describe. So I'm not sure what that means to you to meet someone who says, "Oh, I'm an aging enthusiast." But I wanted to start by turning the tables and putting myself in the hot seat and saying, "Barbara Karnes, what would you like to ask me about aging?"
Well, I even wrote it down so that
Good.
I get the wording just right. What age do you think we do start thinking about aging? And not only aging, let's add end of life. And at what age should we? So
Ooh.
do we and when really
Do
should?
and should. Ooh, and end of life.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that really so I'm writing down your keywords, because we're going to do this right. A lot of people really see that together, and they see it kind of mournfully or regretfully, that if I start to say, "Hey, I'm aging. Hey, that's part of being old," or becoming informed about it, that somehow that's going to be very depressing. They won't be able to push the thoughts away the rest of the day, or they don't want to talk about aging maybe near a birthday. They don't want to be compared to someone else. They don't want to compare themselves to someone that they felt aged badly, that they were maybe hard to listen to. It just seemed to be a lot of complaining, or always referring to themselves. "Well, I'm too old. Don't even ask me because you know how old I am," or something, that sort of a thing. So I'm going to turn it around to the positive. So you asked, what age do I or does a person start to think about aging and end of life? You might agree with this, that it's usually when someone close to them who was full of life and suddenly takes a turn. There's that question of, is this next for me? They've maybe lost a peer. They they want to interact with someone who's just going, you know, that was then. This year, we always go for the big whatever, and I just don't have the energy, something like that. It's like, am I next? Kind of that fearful thing. What, when, oh my goodness, this is going to be even more interesting for people to try to figure out why I'm saying it this way. But I believe that people should start thinking about their aging and thinking about their own aging and their own end of life. I think that it should be normal to talk about it, just as you would be planning your college years, your vacation, everything else. It's like, is there something that I should be doing right now in my new relationship that has something to do with when we are older? Because I'm seeing this as a commitment relationship that is going to go on through life. Should I be maybe informed about something about being older that is going to help that relationship now and is going to cause us to realize, wow, we're really different about that. We're really different about what we think end of life should be like, or interment, or how we should handle maybe deaths in the family, that would be part of very young talk, that would become very normal, just like, asking, hey, what kind of goals do you have for this year at college? Or what do you hope to get in this job that you are applying for? And I'm, that would just be a normal part of talking with friends. It's like, I've always thought it would be great that when I'm much older, that I use these experiences now, and whatever technology is like then, that I somehow incorporate that into my older years, because I've read that people, and that it would just be a normal part of conversation as soon as you reach adulthood. So, most people are like, no, we don't talk about those things until they're imminent. It's like, that's not the way that you've approached that big trip to another country. It's not the way you've approached deciding to become an entrepreneur. You didn't just say, hey, we'll just trip into it and hope it works out. Why would you fall headlong into your aging, or be faced with end of life and go, I'm uninformed, I'm unprepared? Nobody ever says, boy, do I regret being well prepared for something that was likely to happen. So that was a big, long answer. Did that give you a chance to know me a little bit better?
Did.
Very intentional. Oh my goodness. Well, I gave a very long answer. I'm going to say, let's just take a little break right now, and that'll give us both a chance to get a drink of water. And when we come back, I would love, so we're almost ready to take this break. And oops, hey, I know him. That's my producer. What we're going to do is that I am going to start you off, and I'm just going to ask you the question, why you wrote that bright blue book that I got to read in the last couple of months.
Okay.
The Pre-Act Your Age Journal guides you to pre-plan for the emotional and relational impacts of growing older. Practice navigating one aspect of aging at a time with Pre-Act Your Age, while your mind is clear, your emotions are calm, and your relationships are deep.
Barbara, there's a reason why you wrote that book. And I know the reason why I even know that you or any of your books exist. And it's because my neighbor came over onto my lawn and said, I'm shorthanded and you're perfect for the job. Come in on Monday and I'll hire you. I said, I don't even know what you do. And she said, well, I'm in charge of people who do in-home caregiving for in private residences. And I said, I've never done that. I've been a classroom teacher, I've been a mom, I've been a volunteer, but I've never done in-home caregiving. And her response was, oh, I've seen you with our neighbors. You're the right kind of person. And I am so grateful for that moment and for that neighbor because it has really changed the course of this, what I call the third of my life. So I'm going to ask you, why did you write that book that I have seen in people's homes before I even knew your name?
I was a primary hospice nurse for 5 years before I got into administration. So during those 5, I'm going to back up. We've got time. Let me just back up. I graduated from nursing school in 1962 and thought, oh my gosh, I made a huge mistake. Should have never been a nurse. I should have been a social worker. So I raised a family, did interior decorating, and never worked. In the 70s, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross came forward and said, Americans are not taking care of their dying. They're putting them in the end of the hall room, and then they don't see them again till they're dead. And Dame Cicely Saunders in England at that same time came forward and said, for people that can't be fixed, let's deal with quality and not quantity of life. And she developed hospice. And I said to myself, that's interesting. That's something I can do. And so through a set of divine order circumstances, I became a hospice nurse. Part of what we did was we were on call. And so the goblins always come out at 3:00 in the morning. It's never 9 to 5, it's 3:00. So I was on call and I'm sitting in the living room with a family. Mom is in the bedroom and mom is dying. She's not actively dying. She's in what I would call labor.
Yeah.
And so got her settled and I'm with the family and I'm explaining what mom's doing, that it's normal. This is how people die. Nothing bad is happening. It's scary and it's sad. One of the daughters was taking notes. And I thought, oh, what is wrong with this picture? She should not be having to take notes. That weekend, and this is before computers, this is in 1985, I think. Yellow legal pad, sat on my sofa, and I wrote what I wanted a family to know, because people don't die like they do in the movies. And yet, because we have no role models, or the movies are our only role model, when we watch and are there with someone who's dying, we think something pathological is happening. We think mom's doing something she's not supposed to be doing because she's not doing it like the movie did it. All right. So that weekend, I wrote what I wanted a family to know about how people naturally die from disease or old age.
Yeah.
5th grade level, no medical ease, no medical words at all. And yet I wanted it to be
Thank you.
gentle. because this was a hard read, you know, to read and look and see that your loved one's doing all the things in this booklet and know that the end result is that mom will die. It had to be gentle in addition to being short, because family members are the ones that are going to read that book. I wrote a book for someone that is diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. That's a different book. But the blue one is really for families. And so I wanted them to know what's normal. And that's where that blue book came from. And then it took on a life of its own, as far as people finding it. And now, what, 30 million copies or something like that, are out there. So it kind of took on a life of its own.
You talked about, and I have read or watched you before in just recent years, because my caregiving experience must have started. I'm looking at that I'm remembering the face of my daughter. So I'm thinking probably closer now to 10 years ago when I was hired on my front lawn for a job I didn't know. And here is a situation where I'm being called in, goblins at night. This is going to be a long, it went from, you know, a person walking in to brush their teeth to very different. I believe you would call it active dying. And so everyone's scrambling just to have a caregiver there rather than just checking in, 2 hours, getting some cleaning done and things like that. And so that was my longest shift, nothing compared to what other people have done. It was 15 hours. I was happy to do it. The other person that had been there was exhausted. I was so glad to relieve that person who was an employee that I had not met before. And they were absolutely emotionally wrung out. I did get to meet them later under lighter circumstances and understood them so much better. But at that moment, they were just done. And this was not one of the family members.
Mm.
And I came in and a family member said they were the right person to come in and be here for these last many hours. I believe you are the right person to be here now. So now I just want to cry. I've already seen this person brushing their teeth and now they are actively dying. And I'm just giving a slight vignette. I would never want to cross any privacy lines. And just the privilege, you call it a sacred moment, just the privilege of hearing the whispers and having someone say something and laugh and almost feel like I shouldn't be laughing right now. And it's just all part of it. And what you have written is not, hey, this was what you shouldn't have done. What you've written is, this is what you can expect. This is normal. And I'm so grateful that you've done this. And I talked to you before we started recording and I said, I feel very relaxed because I am reading one of Barbara's books. And I'm thinking back to being by the side of one of my own relatives and what I saw there. And I'm flipping through the pages going, I wonder if that was normal. I wonder if that is something that it should have happened, or knowing other people talking about those tender moments, and it's just reassuring to get that information. Lately, I've heard fear factor a few times from different people, and you talk about information just kind of canceling fear. It seems to be the opposite of fear. It's not be brave, chin up. It's like be informed. This isn't fear of the unknown anymore. I
We
just thank you for that.
we are all going to be frightened to some degree when it comes time to die and when someone we care about, it's time for them to die. Fear is always going to be there. It's just a matter of degree.
Oh,
And knowledge reduces fear. As I said, we don't have role models. So if we have something that we can look at or someone who can tell us, mom's doing a good job. Mom's the little chick that's working really hard to get out of her shell of a body. Mom is in labor. Any kind of ideas that we can relate to as far as how we get out of our vehicle that we call a body. So knowledge reduces fear, and all of us are going to be afraid to some degree. And so our job working in end of life, and I would hope that our job in working with aging is to reduce that fear.
yes. Yes. A gentleman said that he was just going, I think people are afraid to talk about end of life, afraid to talk about the last years of life. There's not accurate feeling that you have control over your life to a point and then it all goes out of control. And that would be aging medical things, aging financial things. And, is this done? Some people have been put on hospice and then they are not on hospice. I could not speak to that, and you can. So, people feeling out of control, can you talk both from the standpoint of the person who is dying, they know that the end is imminent, and also from the person who is trying to fix this, or not even maybe prolong life, but just be with them in their dying the right way, just that fear of doing it wrong. I'm dying wrong, or I'm not letting you die right.
What we don't know is that taking care of someone at end of life is different than taking care of someone who's going to get better. And yet most people judge the care that a person at end of life is getting based on how people get better. And so our job of those of us who work in end of life is to educate the family, the caregivers, that there is a different way of taking care of someone. And I think that education is 90% of end of life work, because as we're aging, we tend to not look at it. And so we aren't prepared for it. For the family and the caregivers, they need the support, the education, but also the support. And that's where palliative care and where hospice come into the scenario. This pops into my head, so I'm going to say it. You help me get back on track. And that is dementia is a big part of aging and a big part of the fear that we carry with us in aging. And dementia doesn't play by the end of life rules. For most people, anyone except someone with dementia, I can ask 3 questions. I don't even have to know a diagnosis, but I can ask 3 questions And I can pretty well tell if a person has entered the dying process, if they have months, weeks, days, or hours to live, because there are dynamics to dying from disease and old age. And so those dynamics involve food, sleep, and social ability. And they change months before death from disease, years from someone who is just aging. Dementia, because it doesn't play by the rules, a person can be sleeping 24/7 for years. A person can be withdrawn and not having any social skills for years. So those are the things that I look for that tell me if a person has entered the dying process. It's eating. Eating is the third thing. And when a person with dementia starts choking, it forgets how to swallow, is holding the food in their mouth. When eating becomes an issue, then they will enter the dying process. Always, always offer food. Watch out for choking. Always offer, but there is a point in this dying process where we don't force a person to eat because food's the gas we put in the car. And if the body's preparing to die, it doesn't want the energy that food brings. So those are the three things. Now, I got totally off track, so you can get me on track.
This is great. I'm hearing everything you're saying, and we keep talking about education and information. Maybe the easiest way to talk about it is to talk about it, to tell each other, to ask questions. The whole concept of dementia, Alzheimer's, all these things became something that people talked about normally now, but they didn't until usually a person of prominence came forward and said, I have this. And it's same with diseases. People who are of notoriety or are greatly admired for something they've done on a national or global scale, saying, I know that I'm coming to the end of my life, and this is how I'm choosing to deal with this. I appreciate you not bothering my family during this time, things like that. And it's like, as a humankind, we take a breath and go, oh, and then it becomes something that people tell each other. Did you know that so and so prominent person that we've seen, on media, has this condition, or has expressed that I am at the end of my life, or has come forward and said, hey, I'm not going to hide my age anymore. I'm not going to defy it, decry it, or deny it anymore. And I'm just going to be me and stop apologizing for not being as young as I used to. Hey, folks,
Well,
life is linear, so just telling about it, just talking about it, and not making everything so taboo.
well, the celebrities become our role models. And those that have the courage to come forward and address life as it's really happening give the rest of us the courage to come forward with what's in our life and live it really to a better way if the role model is showing us a better way. So, celebrities have a responsibility to all of us watchers because we're going to follow them.
Yes. And I was thinking another reason why you wrote the blue book is because of emotions. How are you feeling about this? It isn't an instruction booklet on the 17 things you need to have in your dying kit. You might have a book like that, Barbara. I would love to. I'm sure a lot of people would be like, I need a dying kit.
Well,
I know this is going to happen, but you wrote those because of how people felt. It was how you felt when you saw a loved one writing notes and you said, this is wrong. This should already be here for them. And you created it for them.
I have what we call the End of Life Guidelines series, and it's 5 booklets. One is the blue one, which says, here's what's going to happen. Then there's a pink one that is for the family, and it says, here's what you can do while it's happening.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
then there is a booklet on pain. And what most people don't know is that dying is not painful. Disease causes pain. And so if disease is part of the dying process, then you're going to treat, if pain is part of the disease, then you're going to treat that pain until their last breath. But just because they're dying doesn't mean that they're in pain. So that's a little booklet. And then there's a booklet on dementia and how end of life is different with dementia. What else have I got in there? Oh, a booklet on grief, just
Yes.
little 13 pages on grief, the normal aspects of grieving. So you can get this little toolkit. Go to my website, and it's called the End of Life Guidelines series.
Great. You do have a kit.
Yeah.
That is so helpful for people. They're like, oh, my child is now a driver and I want them to have a kit that will have something, something's going to happen. They're going to have needs on the road. And you've done that for people. Something is going to happen as you are dying, and you are going to have needs. You're going to have felt needs, emotional needs, and you're going to have questions. And guess what? You're not the first one with those questions. And here is everything. There's possibly 200 things that I appreciate about you. And one of them is your blogs, that you will take somebody's letter to you and you will put it out there and you will respond to it. And I mean, some of your responses, it just sounds like maybe your fist is just pounding on the desk just a little bit. It's like, why does it have to be this way? And I'm thinking, oh, that person's going, thank you. I was feeling angry about that myself. And you're telling me, that shouldn't have been handled that way. And then you've also been just that voice, that hand on the shoulder, saying this person feels this way, or they've hit something that's maybe yes or maybe not exactly handled in one of your books. And you've taken the time to respond to that person. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. And anyone watching this, go to my website and sign up. It's free. It's what I give to the community. So I write a weekly blog, and out it goes in an email. So,
and when you say go to your website, so you are Barbara Karnes, BK, and then I think there's a B and a K at the end of book, so it's BK Books.
bkbooks.com.
That's easy enough. Barbara Karn, and probably Googling end of life or using any search engine, that SEO stuff that everyone talks about.
Yeah.
Probably end of life or the dying process, any of those phrases that you would come up with, there you would be.
Yeah.
So I have something that I want to tell you about, but you just drew a breath, so I want you to
No,
say that part too. I will not forget it.
no, go ahead. I was just breathing.
You were just okay. So this is what happened. I know of a group called Daughterhood Circle, and it's not a business. It is just gatherings of people who are usually often daughters of parents who are aging, and some of the people keep coming back together on Zoom or in person after that parent is gone, and they're still having emotions, they're still having feelings. And it's just, there's something about gathering together and hearing others speak. And so here's one lady on the screen. There's another person who used to be in California and now she is in South America somewhere. She's on the screen. People are all over, a bunch of people from Canada. I'm just going, hey, I'm just sitting in. I just wanted to hear about things. I've been a caregiver, letting them know I'm not just lurking. And one of the gals goes, okay, so the doctor said hospice is probably what we're going for. And I just don't know anything. And another person goes, um, what was that book? It was called something and it's blue and my hands are just flying down to my laptop and I'm putting it in the chat column. And so I interrupt. This is their time. I'm just a visitor for the first time. And I said, I've put it in the chat column. The leader looks over and she goes, okay, everyone, it's called bkbooks.com. That's what she's talking about. And I'm thrilled that I can help. And at the same time, I'm thinking, this person's been a caregiver for over 10 years. And no resource has ever come to them or anyone else on the screen except the one who was back visiting, just going, you know what? I'm having a hard time in my grief.
Mhm.
And I just thought I'd get back together with you guys again. And she was trying to remember. And I just thought, oh my goodness, how many billboards does this need to be on? And that is why I said at the very beginning, this just needs to be normal stuff. Clear back to graduating from high school, and it's just like, oh, did you take that class on aging? Oh yeah, but I thought I did so well in that, and I thought it would be an easy grade, so I took the end of life class too as my elective. And then it would just be just kind of normal part of talk, and that people would find as they are looking at what they should be doing next, they would be going, I went through that curriculum and I thought I would probably be great at hospice, at being an end of life doula, at being a person who informs others about it, at being a person who would manage for an entire county the hospice and palliative care, which is relieving pain and making people comfortable. I think I would be really good at that. And that would be just as much as of talk as, I think I'd be really great at creating software. And, my teacher said, boy, I can really see an ability in you. You probably will be in charge of this, or you would be an excellent worker because of your abilities. And someone else would say, your compassion is amazing. You understand. I saw you on that field trip. You're the perfect person for that. And that what you experienced, saying, I've got all this training as a nurse, but I don't know that that's where I should put it. And me being hired on my front lawn because she's seen me with my neighbors, how I act with my neighbors, people would discover so much sooner how to be a wonderful caregiving or end of life come alongside person, either as their employment or as their volunteer position, or even in their own family, that they would be an informed, calm voice going, wait a minute, I know about this. I've heard of this before. We're not the first ones going through this. There's resources. There's something. And
If it-
Barbara, go. Yeah.
This is part of life's tools.
Yes.
End of life knowledge is that knowledge you put in your tool bag and you carry it with you through life. I used to go to the high schools in Kansas City and give, a 1-hour class. Not enough, but it was better than nothing.
Right.
But I viewed it as I'm giving them life tools.
Mhm.
Death is part and dying is very much a part of life. It's a part of living. And so as we're preparing our young people to be adults, they need that knowledge also. And it's an area where we're kind of slim right now.
Yes. And it is inaccurate to think they're too young, they shouldn't be saddled or burdened with this. If I'm having trouble dealing with aspects of aging or facing the loss of people, that doesn't mean that that person isn't well equipped. It's available for them to become well equipped. It reduces fear. It is information. It happens all the time. It is happening in the movies, but not the way that it's going to happen in your home or the home that you are going into. But it is wrong to think that that young people are not impacted by aging or death, because you find out in later years someone says, I was there. I actually saw this happening. I didn't know what to think of that. I did the best that I could. I saw my friend and their parent had died at I'll say, an age that high school parents are generally more long-lived, but they saw their friend, their parent had died and or had a terminal illness, and to know I can reach out in this way. I can say something to this person who's just going to their locker, closing the door, and walking like a robot to their next class. I know how to come alongside. I have something for that. It's as wonderful as a person who's learned sign language and is working at a restaurant and they see someone signing and they're like, I know this. I can actually ask them if they want more ranch dressing with sign language, and the excitement to be able to help and to be compassionate and to have those tools right there in their tool belt at a single moment. So I get excited about the possibility of young people being better informed about a big chunk of life and not just saying, no, nope, nope, they're too young. So I appreciate that question you asked me too. Should you start thinking about being old? And we don't have to think about being old or even the dying process as being something that you avoid until you have to face it. It's like, wouldn't you rather face it better? Because some of those heroes, we're talking about people of notoriety, some of those heroes have been like my uncle, and the way that he handled his making his choices before he ended up with a sickness that was going to end in death, and how he even said to my cousin, it won't be long now. How he was so ready and how he helped all of us to be okay with that timing. It just those words, I feel like it won't be long now. I just, I still admire him. I think about him. I remember those moments. I was so glad I was able to arrive before he had his last breath, it wasn't a fearful thing for me. I had seen it before, and I knew it was a privilege to be there. So, Barbara, I am so grateful. I would love for you to say what's available at your website before we finish up.
Okay. bkbooks.com.
Mhm.
I have the blogs. I have booklets. I have DVDs. I have a 29-minute DVD called New Rules for End of Life Care that addresses the dynamics of dying I think, in a beautiful way. Um, uh, I have, um, uh, you just have to go. Go to Go to bkbooks.com. All of my materials are there. Pull up all the podcasts that I do. You can pull up all the blogs. You have a question, go to the search bar and put in morphine or put in food. Anything you want to put in the search bar, and the blogs that I've written about that will come forward. It's an education source. So come visit me.
Oh, I love it. Oh, you couldn't have made it any more accessible. My goodness. Thank you to you. Thank you to your staff. Thank you for that moment in time when you went home with your yellow pad and said, I'm just going to start writing this. And you said one of your books is only 13 pages. There's
All
DVDs. You could put
all of the booklets are like 13, 14 pages, because when you're under stress, when you're taking care of someone, you don't have the energy to read a book, but you do have the energy to read 13 or 14 pages. My newest is I wrote a book, which is 70 some pages, large print, for caregivers, for someone who does not have a medical background but finds themselves taking care of someone as end of life approaches. And so it's an easy read, but it will give you all kinds of tools on how not just to take care of this person, but how to take care of yourself, because it's very important that the caregiver put your oxygen mask on first, so that you have the energy to take care of whoever it is that you're involved in. So that's my newest. Look it up, and I hope you enjoy your trip to the website.
I have enjoyed this whole time. In case you didn't notice, I am so glad that you were a pioneer in this. You just went forward, and you have continued and continued to make even more things. I don't know. Are you writing a book right now? Should I even ask?
I do have one in the works. It'll probably come out next year. And it's stories of my end of life patient family interactions. So it's different stories and how that affected me and what knowledge I got from it. So that'll be out next year.
Fantastic. Oh my goodness. So go to the website, find these things, watch for the new book, use everything that you need, use it as a gift when you don't know what to do for someone else who's facing their own end of life or the end of life of someone that they are so close to, a caregiver who's grieving. There is something there. bkbooks.com. I am so glad that I heard from your office and that you were available today. Thank you, Barbara Karnes. It just makes me even more glad that I call myself the aging enthusiast. Thank you.
Blessing. Bye.
Please visit my guest. You'll find their link in the show notes. I'm glad you listened in on our conversation as we both navigated one aspect of aging at a time on this Pre-Act Your Age podcast. All of the ideas and thoughts expressed on any Pre-Act Your Age podcast are candid conversations and opinions. For medical, financial, or legal advice, consult a professional.